All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things that are going on in Lansing right now, specifically road funding and the minimum wage bill. First, let's take a look at idea of raising the gas tax and putting that money to road funding. Now, this is really gaining steam, and it's a steep increase in the tax. What, about 25 cents more over, what, 4 years?
Right.
Well, it comes out to about $1.4 billion, which is about what we need.
Is this exactly what we needed to do from the beginning instead of
The
Well,
gas
of course.
tax? I don't know.
Some revenue.
Yeah. You gotta
all
get
right,
it from somewhere.
all right, so Nolan, make the case for the gas tax.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure the gas tax is more preferable to a registration fee or a sales tax or whatever. What I know is that these roads aren't going to fix themselves. So whatever method they come up with for funding, it's got to be consistent, it's got to be long-term, and it has to be enough. This business of trying to use a few extra bucks here and there and divert money into the roads, these roads are in too bad a condition, and we're all paying for it already. So Randy Richardville, I thought that was a very courageous proposal. In an election year, you see members of his caucus, oh, no, we can't do that already. But at least somebody has finally introduced real legislation to raise the kind of money we need to fix these god-awful roads.
All right, is that going to pay off for him?
I suppose. I mean, if it gets through, I still am not sure about gas tax either. I mean, I think.
Why not?
The automakers are making more and more fuel-efficient cars, right? And people are using less gas because of that. So, if you raise the gas tax, in the short term you'll get money, but in the long term that could end up yielding less.
But I think, I haven't had a chance to really dive into
it's the
this
wholesale.
But they've switched it also to a percentage
rather than.
So as gas prices go up, it should counter that.
I mean, I still think that we ought to pursue this idea that was raised but didn't seem to get much discussion this week in Lansing about a sales tax increase, and whether you could put 2 cents on the sales tax, split it 1 cent for roads, which would get you about $1 billion, and then put a cent on there for something else.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, because you wrote that column this week in the Free Press, and it was the interesting thought of, if you're going to do that for roads and put just that extra 2% for roads, why aren't we having the larger conversation of, I have some ideas of where that, if you're going to raise the sales tax, please pick on me, because I can tell you exactly where I'd like to see some of that money go.
And that's just it. I mean, everybody thinks there's an appetite in Michigan for a 2 cent increase in the sales tax, and everybody wants it. Education wants it, universities want it, healthcare wants it.
So you prioritize.
Everybody can't get 2 cents. If everybody gets 2 cents, it's a 20% sales tax.
Let's go back to the fundamental question of, is there an appetite for a 2% raise on the sales tax?
So 6% is a pretty good sales tax. You start going to 8%, and that is a very regressive tax in a state where household incomes still haven't grown much over the last few years.
Yeah, it's high, but we also have a decade or more of unbelievable disinvestment, particularly at the higher ed level, and in terms of cities, local governments. We are not keeping pace to maintain this place, to maintain our infrastructure.
Because we've set different priorities, Steve.
Okay.
We've set priorities. We're going to lock people up, and we're going to expand the welfare state here.
Well, okay.
And we've made those choices, and so we've got less to
so
spend
you got to
education. But you can't go to the people and say, we've made these spending priorities. Now we want different priorities, but we're not going to shift money. We're just going to ask you for a whole lot more.
I think you can do both. I mean, I think you can institute prison reform, although that has gone nowhere in Lincoln.
I was just going to say, there has been no conversation about that.
I don't think we can afford to wait for those things to sort of unlock themselves for us to reinvest in higher ed, or for us to deal with the local government funding crisis.
I don't think that Michigan families, Michigan taxpayers can afford to keep dipping into their pocket to fund inefficient government and a government that won't set priorities.
Okay, well, now we're arguing about a shift in sales tax or a raise in sales tax for something that we don't even know what it would be allocated for, and you're already saying it's an inefficient use of the money.
Well, what I'm saying is 6 cents is probably a high enough sales tax. Remember, we were at 4 cents for the longest time here, and we shifted 6 cents to change the property tax formula. There's no trade-off this time. It's a straight hit to consumer pocketbooks.
All right, I'm going to jump into the minimum wage conversation because that conversation is happening up in Lansing as well as the GOP. Are they just trying to head off this ballot proposal and swoop in there and make a change so this will not end up on the ballot?
I thought this was a pretty crafty way to avoid that, avoid that ballot initiative and essentially leave Democratic voters, who were the ones who were the most energized about it, without a big issue to bring them out.
So this isn't a good policy decision. This is just
Horrible.
Basically a political decision.
Well, I don't. Again, I think again, the minimum wage is one way to put more money in people's pockets. It is not the most efficient way. I mean, we talked before about there are other ways to do that don't impact employment quite as much. Expanding the earned income tax credit is the most popular way, but of course Republicans don't want to do that, and they've been taking money out of that. The governor did that in his first budget. So
Well,
I mean, it's
the
not
earned
really
when
possible.
we had the earned income tax, it didn't stop this constant drumbeat to raise the minimum wage. What the Republicans in the Senate did here was choose bad policy over worse policy. They went to 930 instead of 1010. Well, what difference
Not
does
much
it make?
difference.
So when is
You're still slamming small business people. You're still putting the jobs of entry-level workers at risk. We've got record high teen unemployment. That'll go even higher. It's absolute. And plus, they indexed it to inflation, so your business costs go up automatically every year, whether productivity and prices go up or not. You're going to put a lot of people out of
That
business.
So do you have
indexing
people
is-
sitting at home then saying, okay, well, great, so they're choosing bad policy over worse policy, so bad policy is supposed to equal good policy?
Well, it doesn't.
It's not good policy.
It's not
I don't know
bad
what they're
policy.
thinking.
Well, I mean, it's not bad policy. It's been raised 8 times at the federal level since we had the minimum wage, and the economy always grows afterward. It shrinks employment in the short term, but as the economy grows, it always catches up, and we always have
Well, we
expansion.
are not
That's
growing
why-
now, Steve. We're not growing. There are a
Understood.
lot of bad policies that are dragging down this recovery. Why add more? I'm not sure Michigan
I'm
businesses
not arguing
can
with that.
afford
It's-
this hit.
In the long term, it will not make the negative difference that it will now.
All right, likelihood that this is going to happen.
I don't think it'll get through the House. I
I think
can't
it'd
see
be
it.
tough in the House, yeah.
And so then you go, I think they should go and make the case to Michigan voters why this is bad policy, why it will hurt the most vulnerable Michigan citizens,
But you got
and why it'll put
65
small businesses out
You
of
got
Last word.
65% of the people now saying they want it. If it gets on the ballot in the fall, a lot of those voters are Democrats and independent voters who did not come out in 2010. It's going to be it's going to make it tougher for Republicans.
Although the Center for Michigan study did not show a whole lot of passion for this issue.
That
well, I
is
mean,
true.
it showed that the 65% of the people support it.
Okay, but it didn't. The passion wasn't there for we're going to go out and vote just for this.
Well, right. That's
I love how I say to Stephen last word and it never ends up. It never ends up being that way. Is it my fault?
got
All
more to
right.
say.
Also, a big announcement for Detroit: $100 million investment from J.P. Morgan Chase over 5 years for grants and loans to spur investment in the city. Is this what does this say on a larger level to the rest of the country?
Wait a minute, are we done talking about Mackinac?
We
Because we didn't talk about Steve and I's bourbon party.
This is the most
Thursday
important
night.
part.
Thursday
I'm sorry.
night,
Did you hear a segue to that? I don't know. I
was
thought I
waiting.
segued to something else.
7 o'clock. 7 o'clock on the
at the
lawn
Grand
of the
Hotel.
Grand Hotel. Steve and I hosting a bourbon party. Everybody who's coming to the conference, welcome. You're welcome if you're not coming to the
Okay,
If you
thanks.
just wanna come up for the party,
Thanks.
that's cool.
Nolan just hijacked the show, but I'm back in control. So let's talk about the investment that was given this week. What does
Well,
this signal to the rest of the country?
So I said something to Jamie Dimon when he was here yesterday. I said, I could spend $100
They
million.
had drinks.
I said I could spend $100 million in a weekend in Detroit, and you would not see the difference. So tell me why this is something we should be excited
What
about.
did he say?
And what he said was, actually, I could give you $1 billion to spend in Detroit over the weekend, and you wouldn't see a difference. He said the problems here are that profound. But it's the targeting that they're doing with this money, working with Invest Detroit, working with the mayor's office, figuring out the things that are really dragging down neighborhood development. So gap financing, the lagging property values in neighborhoods, figuring out ways to get loans to people to fix up these houses that the mayor is auctioning off, and then expanding that to the commercial corridors that are near those neighborhoods that don't have any businesses on them, in part because businesses can't get loans. They are really sitting and thinking about how to spend this money, this $100 million, in a way that builds capacity, lending capacity, fixes the market, the irrationality in the city, so that it will have much more effect than just that $100 million.
It's a huge piece. No,
And money draws money, Christy. I mean, you think about Detroit, and we went through the corruption scandal at City Hall and then the bankruptcy, and you'd think investors would be running away from the city, and that's not the case. I mean, this city is drawing outside investment, and so this $100 million from JP Morgan Chase, others will look at that and say, you know, we had the Goldman Sachs money
Goldman's
coming in,
already here.
and you know, the Gilbert money coming in, and people will say, well, maybe there's something to this. And there is a lot of investment excitement about Detroit at a time when that just defies logic, and it's very encouraging.
takes a few big steps for then other people to jump in on it.